Part 88. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 871. Chapter 871 I Can't Give You a Child. The two people on their wedding night were of course full of passion. Coupled with previous experience, both parties knew what to do. Yuan Ran was just curious, you don't wear a condom. I don't like it. Kitano lowered his head and bit her earlobe again, interrupting her. Yuan Ran let him go. It didn't matter whether she wore it or not. She couldn't get pregnant. By the way, she can't get pregnant. The tenderness in the past few days almost made her forget about this matter completely. Before B asked her to take medicine, she felt that it would be the same whether she took it or not, so she took it. Just thinking about it now, I really don't know how to talk to Kitano. Just when Yuan Ran was feeling anxious, she suddenly heard Beye say something in her ear. He said, "Of course, give me a child." All enthusiasm was shattered at this moment. Yuan Ran hurriedly pushed B away from him, his eyes averted. Kitano, who didn't know the situation, was confused. He didn't know when he had offended Yuan Ran. Could it be that she didn't want to give him a child? Beye stared at her closely, hoping she would give a reasonable explanation. Yuan Ran tucked her loose hair behind her ears and asked softly, "Is it okay if I don't want children?" To be honest, Yuan Ran was very nervous when he asked that question. She didn't even dare to look into Kitano's eyes. Beye's face was dark and unclear. "Why, you don't want to give me a child?" Yuan Ran didn't know how to speak. But her silence seemed to Kitano as acquiescence. Beye's emotions were most easily affected by Yuan Ran, and her silence made Beye feel angry. No wonder she was hesitant the first time when I asked her to take medicine, but then she took it decisively. Actually, it is not a contraceptive pill. On the contrary, it is a good thing for regulating the body. He pestered Yuan Ran because he deliberately wanted her to get pregnant. But now that they are married and have become a legitimate couple, Yuan Ran tells him that he doesn't want children. Children have a great influence on a family. From B's point of view, he did not marry Yuan Ran for the sake of children, but if Yuan Ran said she did not want children, the nature would be completely different. Yuan Ran, I'm suddenly very curious, why did you suddenly agree to marry me? Not to be outdone, Yuan Ran asked, then why do you suddenly want to marry me? B's eyes flickered. For me, you are the best choice. Because Yuan Ran is the only woman B really likes in his life, and there is no possibility of a second one. Therefore, B's wife can only be Yuan Ran, and she is the best choice. But many things are just like what Ye Wei once said, how will I know if you don't tell me? This is the truth. Words that are not clearly stated can easily lead to misunderstanding. Yuan Ran didn't understand that he meant love, so the person who answered him responded in kind, Yuan Ran wants to get married. It's better to marry you than a stranger. On the first day of marriage, the war between the couple is about to break out. Yes, why did I forget, you will consider any man who is rich. Beye had accumulated some anger in his heart. He stretched out his hand to force Yuan Ran back into his arms and put forward a condition. In that case, how about you give me a child and everything from Anning Group to you? This deal is a good deal. Yuan Ran told him, I can't give you a child. Mr. Beye is actually doing it for An Ran's good, but the little beauty is also suffering. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 872. Chapter 872 Kitano, I'm married. The seemingly calm and cold rejection was unacceptable to Kitano. Beye decisively left the room because he was afraid that he would not be able to help but get angry at Yuan Ran. His fist hit the wall hard, blood drawing from the edge of his palm. Yi Suiao rushed out from the side and held his hand directly. Brother Beye, why did you hurt yourself? Just at this time, Yuan ran chased to the door and saw Yi Suiao and Bai Ye standing face to face, so close, as if the two people were really together. Yuan ran closed the door silently. Bai waved away Yi Suiao's hand without hesitation, "Leave me alone." Kitano went to the alley where he lived 5 years ago, but now it is no longer an alley. It has become a commercial district together with the buildings next to it. Their favorite small bar has gradually expanded, and is now well known in that area because of its affordable prices. B has been away for 5 years and has not contacted his friends in city s. If he sets foot in that place, the person who recognizes him will still be the bar manager from back then. "You kid, you've been gone for so long, and the brothers thought you would never come back." The supervisor punched him, and B didn't dodge and took the punch directly. The brotherhood between men is so wonderful. It only takes a few words or a few actions for them to understand each other. Looking at the way your kid is dressed, have you become prosperous in recent years? Average, but your bar is pretty good. Here I am, just open to make ends meet, just so. The two chatted for a while, and then someone came outside and told the supervisor that someone was looking for her. It was a woman named Yi Suiao. When the supervisor heard this, he glanced at Kitano meaningfully and smiled ambiguously. "Did I follow you?" B frowned and admitted reluctantly, "Maybe." When Yi Suiao came out just now, she asked him where he was going. He answered casually, but she didn't expect that she actually found her. The supervisor immediately said hello to the waiter, "Go and invite that Miss Yi in." Then he gave Kitano an "I understand very well" expression, put his arm around his shoulder and said, "Not bad, have you finally achieved success after so many years of cultivation?" At the beginning, the supervisor was very optimistic about Yi Suiao, a girl who was simple and plain, and knew how to live. At least compared to the wealthy young lady that Kitano liked at the beginning, Yi Suiao was more suitable for Kitano. So now that I heard that they are still in close contact, I thought that these two people were already together. Bai Ye didn't like hearing this joke and immediately dismissed it. "Don't talk nonsense, I have a wife." "What? How many years have you been away and you have even married a wife? Who is she? Where is she? Bring her here and introduce her to your brothers." "She is." Just when B was about to say Yuan Ran's name, Yi Suiao had already opened the door and walked in. "I finally found you." After Yi Suiao came in, she seemed to only see Bai Ye. "What are you here for? You running out this late at night is not reassuring. I'm worried about you." "I am a grown man, why should I worry?" B's tone was not very good, but when he saw Yi Suiao's pale face, he softened his tone slightly and said, "Go back and rest." The supervisor looked at the tone of the conversation between the two and his mind was in knots. "I said, what is your relationship now, Kitano? Aren't you married?" "Get married?" Yi Suiao looked at Bai Ye with doubts on her face. Kitano admitted honestly, "Yes, I'm married." End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 873. Chapter 873. The wife protecting maniac is online. "How come I don't know who you are marrying?" Yi Suiao seemed to say this in a joking way, but she actually didn't dare to face it because the appearance of Yuan Ran made her feel very uneasy. Sure enough, B told them without any hesitation the next moment that the person they were going to get married to was Yuan Ran. Yi Suiao took a breath of cold air. The supervisor was caught off guard when he heard the name. How could it be? Why are you together again? When it comes to Yuan Ran, they don't have a very good impression of Yuan Ran. In fact, their contact with Yuan Ran was not deep. They only met twice when Kitano took him out to play, and they gave him the impression of indifference. They are a group of people who are playful and lively, so Yuan Ran feels too cold to them. It seems that the rich lady looks down on these little minions. This doesn't matter, after all, it's my brother who likes it, and it's fine as long as he's happy. Until Yuan Ran exposed his true nature and dumped Beiye, and even found someone to beat Beiye until he was hospitalized. At that time, they were very repulsive and disgusted with Yuan Ran. So now when they hear Bi talking about marrying Yuan Ran, they don't want to believe it. Yi Suiao took 2 steps back and stood by the door, seeming to be slowly digesting the news. After looking at Yi Suiao's expression, the supervisor pulled Bi aside. "Why are you with that Yuan Ran again? Didn't you learn your lesson? You're stupid, aren't you? I know what I'm doing. That woman is greedy for fame and wealth but also has a vicious heart. She is not worthy of your care at all." Beiye warned displeasedly, "Just because I call you brother doesn't mean that you are allowed to speak ill of my wife. She is my wife, and as long as I know how good she is." Beiye, a madman who protects his wife, does not allow outsiders to slander Yuan Ran. The supervisor cannot understand him. But seeing B's protective attitude so firm, the supervisor was too embarrassed to say anything wrong about Yuan Ran. "When I saw Yi Suiao next to me, I felt a little sympathetic. Then what's going on with Miss Suiao? It looks like you two have a good relationship. You don't know how to stand in the same boat, right? Although I don't believe that brothers would do such a thing, it seems that we have a good relationship. It's really complicated. But I am always upright in everything I do, and my only wife is Yuan Ran." Kitano's focus is always on protecting his wife. "Then why don't you tell me what's going on with Miss Suiao? She is in poor health and has no relatives around her, so she is staying at my house temporarily." "Tisk, tisk, tisk, you are such a lucky boy." The supervisor saw Yi Suiao's plain face and thought of Yuan Ran again. "I don't care what Yuan Ran's character is like, but her stunning face and noble and elegant demeanor are really impeccable." Kitano still has a good eye for appreciation. He fell in love with such a beautiful woman and now marries her into his family. Even if the woman had other thoughts, at least it was pleasing to the eye, and it would be extra honorable to take her out. Yi Suiao stood for a while and then said she was leaving first. Bi chatted with the supervisor for a while, and the supervisor finally accepted the fact that Kitano and Yuan Ran were married, and kept teasing him to treat him. Bi nodded repeatedly, "I'll contact you guys sometime." "Then do you want to have a midnight party now?" Bi shook his head, "Forget it, my wife is still at home, I'm going back." As soon as he went out, he saw Yi Suiao still guarding outside. "I call you my wife, do you dare to agree?" End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 874. Chapter 874. Ran Ran, I will always protect you. At midnight, Yuan Ran stood awake at the bedroom window, watching Kitano's car drive in. 2 people got out of the car one after another, and Yi Suiao was also there. It turned out to be so. Suddenly I felt that this marriage was meaningless, maybe it was a mistake from the beginning. She cannot give Kitano the child he wants, and the 2 of them will be separated sooner or later. Beiye asked her why she agreed. Closing your eyes, the scenes of the past that appear in front of you are probably because of greed. Once upon a time, I really can't go back. She didn't know why Bi took Yi Suiao out with him after he became angry. Judging from how familiar the 2 were, maybe the person who had been with Bi in the past 5 years was Yi Suiao. Yuan Ran lay in bed and did not fall asleep. Until later, while half asleep and half awake, she seemed to hear the sound of the door opening and someone doing something beside her. But at that time, I probably didn't want to open my eyes. After Bi brought Yi Suiao back to the villa, he went to the next room. He stayed there for an hour, and the cigarette butts fell on the floor. Even he disliked the smell of cigarettes all over his body. He even thought about how a long time ago, When he was smoking, a girl would always take away the cigarette case and lighter in his hand, and repeatedly told him, "Smoking is harmful to health, you can't smoke." Baya was unruly and rebellious back then, but he was willing to surrender to one person. He loved Yuan Ran's serious way of controlling him back then, and he was happy with it no matter what. That's all. Meeting Yuan Ran, the arrogant bee was destined to lose once and for all. He got up and went to the toilet to take a shower again. He waited until the smell of smoke dissipated before carefully opening his heart. Yuan Ran was already asleep, but seeing her frowning in her sleep, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. Only in the dead of night did he fully show his feelings. The calloused hand gently touched Yuan Ran's fair and flawless face, and his voice was particularly heavy, "Why don't you love me?" From beginning to end, he refused to give up this relationship, but Yuan Ran could. Baya could never hate Yuan Ran, but he had resentment in his heart. "I blame her for giving up so easily in the first place, I blame her for never being sincere, I blame her for not having him in the people and things she values. That's why I tried to temper her pride over and over again, but in the end I still couldn't bear to keep her around. Even if it is wishful thinking, he is not willing to let go." He coaxed a few words softly into her ear, and gently smoothed Yuan Ran's frowning brows with his fingers. "Of course, I will always stay by your side, don't be so uneasy anymore." He wanted her to feel at ease and accept everything with peace of mind. Including, he broke into her life again. Yuan Ran woke up after a long sleep and rubbed his eyes. "I don't know why, but you seemed to have good sleep quality last night." The brain finally woke up, and the calm and composed Yuan Ran returned during the day. She was washing, picking out clothes, and putting on makeup in her room. The things she used today were all wedding gifts prepared by Kitano for her. Having spent half an hour waiting for everything to go down, Yuan Ran looks good without makeup. In the past, she would draw eyebrows after doing skincare, but today she used a full set of makeup tools and put on a daily makeup look. But for Yuan Ran to come, it is the icing on the cake. I am afraid that others will be shocked for 3 seconds when they see it. She was about to go downstairs to face Yi Suiao at this moment. A woman's competitive spirit should not be underestimated. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 875. Chapter 875. The main palace empress compares appearance with the mistress. Thinking of facing Yi Suiao, who lived under the same roof, Yuan Ran paid special attention to her clothes. She used to like simple black and white business attire, but now she deliberately changes into the skirts Kitano gave her. She wanted to take a coat and wear it a little, but when she saw that there was still a little red mark on her collarbone, she hesitated a little and put the coat back in the closet, wearing only a skirt. It's autumn, but it's not too cold at home. Yuan Ran is wearing a skirt now, and the temperature is just right. Although Yuan Ran is also curious about why this trace is still there from last night to now, but when he thinks of facing Yi Suiao, it is not bad to keep it. Yuan Ran was wearing one of the 2 skirts that Kitano put on her bed last time. She chose purple because it was a suspender skirt, slim-fitting at the waist, and a little tempting. Yuan Ran's schedule is relatively accurate, and it's all done before going to work every day. It's only 8 o'clock when she finishes everything. She opened the door and walked out, and was surprised to find that Yi Suiao had just woken up, wearing a pajamas and collecting water upstairs, as if she was treating this place as her own home. However, people tend to pay more attention to the beautiful one. When Yuan Ran, who was dressed brightly and had exquisite makeup, walked down, the servant who passed by to deliver breakfast almost knocked over the plate. Their new hostess is too beautiful. That beautiful face, good figure, and long white legs wearing a pair of stroppy high heels are simply stunning. Yi Suiao heard the footsteps, and when she turned her head, she obviously saw the extremely beautiful Yuan Ran. Yi Sueo lowered her head and glanced at her silk pajamas and long hair, and suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She originally wanted to treat this place as casually as her own home, but she didn't expect that her thoughts would be outweighed by Yuan Ran, who was deliberately dressed up. Everyone is driven by vision. Between beauty and shamelessness, the former is definitely the one that attracts the most attention. Yi Sueo put down the water glass in embarrassment and wanted to rush back to the room to change clothes and make up, but Kitano came down from upstairs at this time. Yuan Ran and Yi Sueo, who were standing at the bottom of the stairs at the same time, were in sharp contrast. But no matter what, B only had Yuan Ran in his eyes, as if he had ignored all the people and things around him. Morning. Yuan Ran raised his hand and said good morning to Kitano. Although her emotional intelligence is in arrears, her IQ is always online. Only by dressing yourself up beautifully can you look more like a winner. Beiya didn't reply to her. Not out of indifference, but because he felt that the Yuan Ran he saw this morning was breathtakingly beautiful. Especially, the expression on her face didn't seem so cold. By the time Kitano came to his senses, Yuan Ran had already turned around and went to the dining table to prepare for breakfast. Yi Sueo wanted to say hello to B, but B walked straight past her and never looked back. Yi Sueo felt that her cheeks were very hot. It's not because I'm shy, but because I feel like I'm being slapped in the face. She hurried back to the room to pick out a new dress and put on makeup that she didn't usually use. Yi Sueo saw this face in the mirror, and then thought of Yuan Ran's exquisite face. She suddenly felt that God was very unfair. Some people are born with good fortune and are blessed with good luck. She has a good family background, education, and a man who really likes her. How come all the good things are taken up by her alone? This is too unfair. Yi Sueo is not a mistress. Because our brother Bei doesn't cheat. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 876. Chapter 876 Clavicle. Yi Sueo had some emotional ups and downs, and the lipstick in her hand swayed and spread to the outside of the corners of her mouth. Yi Sueo quickly wiped it with a cotton swab, only to find that the quality of the lipstick was really good. Can't wipe it off. I had to wipe it with makeup remover and then painted it again. She is still a little unsure. If you look carefully in the mirror, you can see that there are still some spots around the lower and lower eyes that cannot be covered, even if you use concealer. Yi Sueo sighed angrily and put a layer of blush on her pale face to make her overall complexion look much better. Guessing that Yuan Ran and Beiya were already sitting together for breakfast at this time, Yi Sueo didn't want to delay any more, so she a simple ponytail and walked out. I wanted to go down for breakfast, but I didn't expect to see Yuan Ran holding a coat in his hands and getting ready to go out. Of course, Yuan Ran was not the only one who was getting ready to go to work, but also Beiya, who was standing next to her. Yi Sueo hurriedly walked over to greet them. Brother Bei, miss you, are you going out now? Go to work. Yuan Ran, who usually doesn't like to talk, answered before Kitano, but he still cherished his words like gold. Yi Sueo was stopped by the word go to work, and then looked at Beiya with pleading eyes and said, Brother Bei, I also want to go to work. Who would have thought that Kitano vetoed it without even thinking? Since you are not in good health, you should take a good rest. This is actually not a word of concern. Kitano's tone when he said this was more like reminding her of a complete mission. But these were automatically interpreted as concerns by Yi Sueo. Yi Sueo felt happy and nodded along with his wishes. Okay, I'll listen to Brother Bei. Look, she looks like an innocent and cute little girl next door. She will listen to whatever Kitano says. It's just that Yi Sueo only listens to what she likes to hear. If it's something she doesn't like to hear, she just pretends she didn't hear it. Just like last night, Kitano told them exactly that he had married Yuan Ran. But Yi Sueo didn't believe it. Because it was the first time she saw Yuan Ran beside Kitano after she returned to S City, she didn't want to believe the fact that she and Yuan Ran reconciled after graduation. But the fact is the fact. Yi Sueo planned to stand at the door and watch them go out. Yuan Ran turned around and stared at her, then looked at her again, and finally couldn't help calling her, "Miss Yi, you." Yi Sueo asked smoothly, "What?" Yuan Ran was still hesitant at first. Yi Sueo saw the red mark on Yuan Ran's collarbone with sharp eyes. She is in her 20s, so she doesn't know what it means. What's more, when a man and a woman live in the same room, and there is a foundation of affection between the two, it is extremely normal for something like that to happen. Yuan Ran noticed her gaze and lowered his eyes to calm down his emotions. Being upright, she pointed to her eyes again and kindly reminded Yi Sueo, "Your eyeliner is a bit thick." Yi Sueo hugged Se and quickly returned to her room. "Your eyeliner is thicker?" Yi Sueo only ensured that B didn't hear it, so it wouldn't be so scary. But the reality is that Beiya often took one more look at Yi Sueo after hearing Yuan Ran's words. Warm reminder of Kixi Festival Welfare Group. There will be welfare red envelopes and irregular activities regularly every month in the group. Kaibeo with a fan value of 2000, disciple, or above, first join the book club group 1450160019 and find the manager 3.5 years old, and then invite to the welfare group. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 877. Chapter 877. B is a gangster and wants to kiss him. Yi Sueo quickly turned her head away, but she kept her eyes open. B naturally hugged Yuan Ran's waist and said, "Let's go, let's take you to work." When Yuan Ran stood at the door, he didn't resist or speak. But when they walked out, Yuan Ran took a few steps away from Beiya without leaving a trace, as if she couldn't stay with him. Her little actions naturally made Beiya unhappy. "Why, you want to keep this distance between you and your husband?" Hearing B's displeasure, Yuan Ran replied not to be outdone, "What distance do you think I should keep from a husband who goes out with other women in the middle of the night?" After meeting Beiya, she talked a lot more. Boys generally don't like to be questioned by their women. But when this matter was left to Beiya, the little unhappiness he felt just now disappeared in an instant. Mr. Bei shamelessly took her back into his arms and kissed her on the face. "Yuan Ran, aren't you jealous? You think too much." Yuan Ran turned away his eyes, brushed his hand away and sat in the car. She was sitting in the driver's seat and seemed to really want to go to the company by herself. But at this time, Kitano used his speed to get into the passenger seat and waited for Yuan Ran to drive. Yuan Ran exhaled heavily, started the car forward, and headed directly towards the gate of U Group. Yushi Group Corporation and Anning Group are in two different directions, and they are not talking about each other. Yuan Ran saw Kitano sitting steadily next to him. At first, he deliberately didn't ask, but then he couldn't help but ask casually, "You don't plan to go to work?" "Combining work and rest, I have to take a vacation for myself after I get married." "What is this called, honeymoon period?" Hearing that he started talking nonsense again, Yuan Ran replied to him, "It's up to you." No one witnessed their marriage, they only received a red book to tie their relationship together from a legal perspective. There was no wedding, no blessing, and she still doesn't know whether she should tell her mother about it. Will he be liked by his mother? Yuan Ran really hasn't thought through these issues. As expected, Yuan Ran parked his car in the dedicated parking lot of U Group, as if he was walking alone. But Beizhou sat on it and did not move, nor did he follow her. Yuan Ran locked the door and took 2 steps, but couldn't help but fall back and knock on the glass window. "What do you want to do?" "Waiting for you to get off work." Baya, are you kidding me? It's really funny. She was just going to work now, but Kitano said he would sit here and wait for her to get off work. Do you seem too bored and have nothing to do, or do you feel that you will not go to work because of his words? No matter which one, it is not the result that Yuan Ran wants to see. I'll give you 10 seconds, come down. You kiss me and I will listen to you. Humph, this is definitely not a snort of an arrogant nature, but is similar to a cold snort without being sarcastic. Then you stay. Yuan Ran left directly. No matter what Baya wanted to do in the car, she didn't bother to argue with Baya, because she knew that she couldn't compete with Baya, let alone Baya's exquisite thoughts. Yuan Ran was still a little late for work today. People in the company greeted her when they saw her. After they went upstairs, the secretary told her, the chairman has returned to the company. The chairman of Yashi Group is MRSU. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 878. Chapter 878 Special Favor. Yuan Ran was a little surprised when he saw MRSU in his office. Mom, why are you here? I heard that you didn't come yesterday morning and you were late again today. What's going on? MRSU came to the company probably because she felt that she had had enough rest and could continue to work. But he didn't expect that when he arrived, he would learn that his daughter was not serious about her work. Although the relationship between MRSU and Yuan Ran has eased a lot, the strict and demanding character in their hearts is still there, and they can't stand people not doing things according to the rules. Because Yuan Ran controls the company, he should be treated more rigorously. Yuan Ran thought about what she had done in the past 2 days. Compared with MRSU's previous education rules, what she had done was really spectacular. But she didn't dare to tell MRSU that she was going to marry Baya yesterday. Otherwise, I don't know what trouble will happen again. Yuan Ran just found an excuse to avoid the important thing. Yuan Ran is the kind of person who doesn't lie very much. If you ask her about many things, she will answer truthfully no matter whether the result is good or bad. But after Yuan Ran dealt with MRSU, generally speaking, MRSU would not doubt her. But Yuan Ran was still thinking about Kitano in the parking lot downstairs. She took the keys with her when she left. Kitano was sitting in the car and couldn't get out. What if there was an emergency? Yuan Ran worked for a while and then found an excuse to go out. When Yuan Ran went back, she looked up and saw no one, which scared her. As soon as she opened the car door, Kitano pulled her in. It turned out that Kitano had already moved from the passenger seat to the back seat with a wave of his hand. At this moment, 2 adults were standing in the carriage, feeling a special sense of excitement. What's even more frightening is that Yuan Ran feels like she's enjoying herself. Furthermore, this location is very exciting. Let me go, Yuan Ran struggled for a moment, but Baya stopped her. Any solution? Sealed with a kiss, of course. Snapped. Yuan Ran slapped Baya and threw him away because she didn't expect them to be so strong, but it just made her uncomfortable. B touched the area on his face where he had been beaten, but he was not angry at all, as if he was not the one who was being treated indifferently. Because he couldn't feel the pain here, it may be explained that Yuan Ran didn't use any force at all. Baya seemed to know the reluctance in her heart, and was not angry even if she was slapped. He even deliberately asked her, the right side is asymmetrical. Do you want to hit the left side? Yuan Ran. This kind of person is deliberately looking for abuse, right? Baya became interested and was in a particularly good mood, so he wanted to make her fun and happy. Kiss me, the reaction is so big. Yuan Ran's heart skipped a beat. After Kitano said this, she remembered that Kitano actually kissed her. When I did those things before, I deliberately avoided kissing her lightly, but Kitano just kissed her. Not only just now, but also when she walked out of the villa this morning, Kitano also kissed her on the cheek, but he didn't even dislike her makeup-covered face. Thinking of this, Yuan Ran's tone suddenly became much more relaxed, and she scolded him as if to cover up, "Who told you to ignore the occasion?" Beiye can understand what it means to be truly angry and what it means to speak deliberately. So he is in a particularly good mood now. "Little beauty, you just don't want to leave me here alone, right? What a beautiful girl." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 879. Chapter 879 Temporary Amnesia. Even though there was no sign of reconciliation after the quarrel last night, he treated what happened yesterday as if it never happened. "Did you forget that we were quarreling?" Yuan Ran even wondered whether Kitano was suffering from temporary amnesia. You really want us to quarrel? I'm not that free." "That's right, I don't have one either." Yuan Ran can't see what Beiye is thinking or doing now. He feels baffled from beginning to end, but he seems to be led by Beiye. This feeling made her very insecure. To be fair, Yuan Ran doesn't like himself like this. She pushed Beiye away and said calmly, "I have to go to work." Beiye indeed let go of her, but now he also followed her, saying euphemistically, "Protect you. I do not need. I need to." Obviously Yuan Ran's refusal is useless. B never needs to take face into account in what he wants to do. At first, Yuan Ran thought B was teasing her on purpose, but later she discovered that B followed her into the company and really wanted to protect her. "My mother is at the company, do you want to see her? If you are willing to introduce him, of course I would be happy to do so." Seeing that B really showed no rejection, Yuan Ran felt a little confused. It's not that they can't meet each other. After all, Kitano has made great achievements now, and his mother will definitely not separate them again on the grounds that they are not worthy. But the things we did back then were too heavy, how could we get along without any grudges? Squint your eyes and exhale. She walked out of the elevator and heard footsteps and voices next to her. Yuan Ran then looked around and saw that it was MRSU and assistant Sun walking side by side. Everyone saw each other, including Beiye, who suddenly appeared in the company. MRSU and assistant Sun were extremely vigilant as soon as they saw Beiye. Yuan Ran, who is usually calm, was also a little nervous. Still not sure how to explain the reason for Kitano's appearance, Kitano took the initiative to go up to say hello to MRSU, or did he tell her what kind of contract he wanted to negotiate with her as the president of Anning Group? Yuan Ran was confused when she heard B talking about the contract, but B's words were reasonable and well-founded, as if they had really just discussed a business matter. MRSU's eyes were a little strange, but she had to believe Beiye's words. Because they have no other choice but to believe. Later on, Kitano actually stayed in the same office as Yuan Ran under the guise of talking about business, leaving MRSU and assistant Sun feeling uneasy. He really found in Ran. "The lady is a smart person, madam, you don't need to worry too much." Smart, her smartness is never reflected in her emotions. It was for her sake that they were separated in the first place, so it would be better for her to pay for it with all her hands. "Perhaps we just met him. I don't think the lady has any special care for Kitano." MRSU shook her head. "After so many years, you have seen that she has deliberately dressed up to hide her appearance, and there is no ambiguous partner around her. Now that Kitano is back, the two of them are together again. Do you think I can rest assured? Then maybe Kitano really likes the lady. It's okay if I really like him, but I'm just afraid that he won't be able to let go of those things that happened in the past. That Kitano is not easy to worry about. How about inviting the young lady back to Yu's house in the next few days? This is the only thing I can do." I'm really worried about leaving her alone outside. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 880. Chapter 880 Announcement of Love. As expected, Assistant Sun conveyed to Yuan Ran the idea of returning to the Yu family, but MRSU rejected it without hesitation. I'm fine out there. Miss, Madam is worried that it will be inconvenient for you as a girl to live outside. Moreover, Miss has not returned to the villa for a long time, and Madam is quite lonely alone. Assistant Sun spoke eloquently. Yuan Ran glanced at him and shook his head. Yuan Ran always thinks clearly about everything she does. She can almost quickly think that MRSU asked her to go back to the villa because she saw her and Kitano staying together today. So, she decisively refused. Assistant Sun tried to persuade her, but Yuan Ran said a few words that made her unable to refute. At the end, Assistant Sun really wanted to cover his head and cry. Why did he want to speak in front of the gold medal debater? Isn't that looking for abuse? Really? Assistant Sun reported the bad result to MRSU. MRSU sighed softly, as if she had already met Assistant Sun and returned without success. She seems to be obedient, but in fact she has a stubborn personality, and it is not easy to change the things she really decides, even if it is a forced change. Sigh. It was as if she was forced to separate from Kitano, but the things she did later still strengthened her mind. Let her be, pay more attention to her mood, and if there is anything abnormal, tell me in time. Okay, madam. MRSU knew that she was getting old, and her daughter would have to find someone to accompany her sooner or later. She only hoped that her daughter could meet a beloved man who sincerely protects her and live a happy life. But the premise of all this is that the person must be rich and powerful. Only on this basis, MRSU believes that even if there are problems with her relationship in the future, at least her life will be worry-free. MRSU slightly indulged Baya in approaching Yuan Ran. What they didn't expect was that they would see Kitano appear at the door of the company after get off work, driving this luxurious sports car, which was particularly eye-catching. Yuan Ran is a low-key person. When Kitano is being watched in a luxury sports car, she really doesn't want to go out and attract attention. But there is no way, Kitano is just like this, uninhibited. Yuan Ran refused to come out, so he started bombarding her with phone calls and text messages until Yuan Ran responded. Although he is a bit crazy, Yuan Ran does not really feel repelled, because the Kitano she knows has such a temperament that makes people unable to hate him, but loves him more deeply. The calm Yuan Ran needs to be with the passionate Baya to complement each other. Just when Yuan Ran couldn't help but take a step forward, MRSU suddenly walked up to her and asked, "An Ran, you're not going home after get off work?" Yuan Ran was startled and felt guilty for no reason. Something fell. She made an excuse to go back and lingered in the office for a while. When she came down, MRSU had left, but Kitano was still there. Now she got into the car without hesitation, and everyone who saw the scene began to spread rumors privately. Last time, it was the Anning group that funded the Yu family to get through the difficulties unexpectedly. It was Mr. Yu who was with the CEO of the Anning group. Don't talk nonsense, maybe just talk about business. Whoever is talking about business and drives a sports car to pick someone up after get off work is really cool. I think it's just to announce their relationship. But no matter what they said, the relationship between Yuan Ran and B became increasingly tight. Even she herself felt that she had put aside the past and got back together. But end of this chapter.